John Boehner announced today the substance of the resolution that he's going to bring to the House floor and to vote on to initiate litigation against Obama for his lawlessness. And I suspect tomorrow the backbenchers are going to praise this and tell you how wonderful it is. And most of them are not lawyers. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. Many of them have been defendants in lawsuits, trying to get lawyers. But that's a whole other story. Let me read you the Boehner press release. Let me tell you a little bit about the resolution. And then let me tell you why this is very scary to me. House Speaker John Boehner issued the following statement announcing the House would initiate legal action over Obama's unilateral actions on the health care law's employer mandate in 2013. Quote, today we're releasing a draft resolution that will authorize the House to file suit over the way President Obama unilaterally changed the employer mandate. In 2013, the president changed the health care law without a vote of Congress, effectively creating his own law by literally waiving the employer mandate and the penalties for failing to comply with it. That's not the way our system of government was designed to work. No president should have the power to make laws on his or her own. Now, Boehner unwittingly has just created an impeachment charge. But neither he nor the chorus of losers inside the Beltway, never has a chance, are going to take it there. He goes on, as I've said, this isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about the legislative branch versus the executive branch. And above all, protecting the Constitution. Constitution states the president must faithfully execute the laws and spells out that only the legislative branch has the power to legislate. The current president believes he has the power to make his own laws, at times even boasting about it. He said that if Congress won't make the laws he wants, he'll go ahead and make them himself. And in the case of the employer mandate in his health care law, it's exactly what he did. This president can get away with making his own laws. Future presidents will have the ability as well. The House has an obligation to stand up for the legislative branch and the Constitution, and that's exactly what we will do. No, that's not what you're doing. There's 3 branches of government. You're kicking it to the courts, which is scary on many levels, which I'll get to in a moment. He's not standing up for the House. The House is not standing up for itself. It's filing a lawsuit. It's got powers within Article 1, and I'm sure at some point some court's going to say to him, you've got powers, use them. What do you want from us? And I really do cringe at this idea that one of the branches of government, the elected branches of government, turns to the unelected branch of government and in essence empowers that unelected branch of government to make these decisions. That's not the way it was supposed to be. But let me continue. This resolution, providing for authority to initiate, and I'm reading from it, litigation for actions by the president inconsistent with his duties under the Constitution of the United States. That is an impeachment charge. Resolved, the Speaker may initiate or intervene in one or more civil actions on behalf of the House of Representatives in a federal court of competent jurisdiction to seek relief pursuant to the sections 2201, 2202 of Title 28 U.S. Code, and to seek appropriate ancillary relief, including injunctive relief regarding the failure of the President, the head of any department or agency, or any other officer or employee of the United States to act in a manner consistent with that official's duties under the constitutions and laws of the United States with respect to the implementation of Obamacare. And it goes on somewhat with a little more boilerplate. Mark, why aren't you cheering this on? Because I am a constitutional lawyer, because this is what I do. And because a couple of lawyers have come up with an idea that they think might work, where one of the houses of Congress brings a lawsuit, it troubles me and worries me. We're not discussing academics here. This is not a theoretical matter. The Supreme Court has somewhat of a history in this regard when it comes to standing, the issue of standing. It's all important. If you personally bring a lawsuit and you don't have standing, you lose immediately. And that's the quickest way for the court to avoid this case, if it chooses to, a district court or a circuit court, and certainly the Supreme Court, is to say the House doesn't have standing. Well, Mark, why doesn't the House have standing? Because Congress is a branch of government, not the House. The House is part of a branch of government. And so the House will say it's bringing a lawsuit on its own behalf, but what the courts have said in the past is you can't. And in many cases, even when the full Congress, the House and the Senate have brought cases, the courts have said, look, why are we involved in this? This is up to you to duke it out politically, electorally with the executive branch. Right or wrong, I'm just making the point. Now, my problem with this is that this is really an outlier argument. It's an outlier argument. Not the part where the president is lawless. He is lawless. And by the way, I've seen people, even so-called conservative columnists, say, well, you know, Obama's lawlessness really isn't all that much different than Bush's lawlessness. That is absurd. That is pathetic. That's preposterous. And I don't need to make that argument. You already know that on your own. But putting that aside, here's what I don't get. We have midterm elections coming up in November, obviously. If the Republicans take the Senate, and then the Republicans control Congress, wouldn't the Republicans in Congress have a better argument for standing? And I'm not saying it's a winning argument. I'm just saying a better argument for standing to bring a lawsuit in January after the Republican majority, if there is one, takes over in the Senate. Why would you risk this now? To buy a couple of months? And the answer is Boehner's playing politics. That's why. Boehner doesn't expect to win this. And that's why I find this irresponsible from a constitutional perspective. I want to ask you, put aside biases, put aside parties, let's think clearly. Do we really want these unelected judges, many of whom we disagree with on policy grounds, to be making all these political decisions? Do we really want a Speaker of the House who has abandoned his responsibilities under Article 1, who's thrown away the very tools that the framers gave the House of Representatives, the power of the purse, the power to tax, and then files a lawsuit asking the courts to do for him what he refuses to do on his own? Is that what we want? That will only encourage future speakers of the House to do exactly the same thing. It's a very dangerous precedent. That's number one. Number two, let's say this case is quickly dismissed on summary judgment, as an example. Quickly dismissed. Who will benefit from that, and who will be harmed by that? You need to think these things through if you're a litigator. Well, the House will be damaged by that in terms of the politics of it. It'll be status quo in terms of the Constitution. In other words, they ought to go back and use the tools that the framers gave them. But they'll be hurt badly politically. Because it'll be said, look, they brought a lawsuit and even the courts disagree with what Boehner and the Republicans did. But look what Obama will do with it. He will claim, wrongly, but he's a demagogue, and he will claim, look at this. The courts agree with me. The federal courts agree that I can exercise this power. And I can exercise this power because I have a pen and a phone. And I can do stuff because Congress won't do it. Because Congress is obstructing me. And they brought their lawsuit and the courts agree with me. And it will embolden him and future presidents to violate the Constitution and to expand their illegitimate imperial power. This is why I am so troubled by this lawsuit. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. I can't know what courts are ultimately going to do. But I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This is playing with fire, and I'm not kidding. He can issue his press releases. He can make statements. He can go on and on. The power that the House actually he refuses to exercise. He refuses. And he's throwing this 60-yard pass into the federal courts where it's going to bounce around in a couple of courtrooms, and it makes me enormously nervous. Can't be sure of the outcome, but if the outcome is as I suggest, I'm not predicting, as I suggest, it's a disaster. Because then Obama will claim that the courts have confirmed that he has this power. I think this is a very, very risky and foolish move, as opposed to doing what Congress is supposed to do.